Good afternoon, everyone. Our topic of the research is the primary English language education policy in Vietnam's disadvantages, areas, implementation barriers. So, the significance of our study is to find out the implementation of English language policy in Vietnam and to know their challenges in implementing the English language. This article investigates English language policy implementation in Vietnam's rural and remote areas from the perspective of primary English teachers from 2008 onwards. This study further views positive development in the teaching process as well as the learning environment among the teachers and students. English language policy planning and implementation in the primary sector has been a topic of discussion in a various contexts in Asia. So the background of our study is, since the 1990s, English has been strongly promoted by a range of government policies, including a push to implement English language education at all levels by 2020. Our study has addressed the challenges of primary English teaching in Vietnam's rural and remote areas. The findings revealed that the Northwest region was behind other regions. Remoteness is far from meeting expectations due to significant gap between who pets are and they are expected to do. The current English language policy goals and implementation in rural primary sector regarding slow execution, curriculum variation, limited teaching resources, inappropriate pedagogy, and assessment. The Vietnamese government has emphasized the role of English as part of Vietnamese socio-economic development. As a result, English has become the preferred foreign language in Vietnam. So why is English important in Vietnam today? In Vietnam, English is a compulsory subject at school and it is also official language commonly used to communicate with foreigners. Having good English benefits employees at work, especially at foreign companies, and accelerate the country in social and socio-economic development.
English language policy planning and implementation in the primary sector has been a topic of discussion in various contexts. In Asia, globalization and national development have been the major drivers of top-down English education policies. Language policy goal planning is critical to language teaching and learning, in which the defined goals cover the form of a language learning program. There has been a growing trend goals in Asia that language in policy is framed to equip learners for the global community and competitive worlds. However, this trend has raised many unanswered concerns to date, especially for those living in rural, underdeveloped areas. Examining some common policies related to educational language planning, Kaplan et al. Identified 12 fundamental reasons which may lead to the failure of primary English language planning. They include inadequate time, inappropriate teacher training, insufficient appropriate materials, inappropriate methodology, and lack of desired outcomes, inadequate resources for student population needs, insufficient commitment, continuity, uncertainty related to language norms, and effective international assistance and prepared primary student, unconsulted community and minority language, marginalization, consulting different stakeholders involved in school-based language policy has been indicated as one useful way to respond to misalignment between policy and implementation. Since 2000, the main problem sa Vietnam is ang teacher, ang pet primary English teachers sa Vietnam is wala bitaw sila na trained well sa para sa kaning English, dili sila maayo, dili sila qualified and confident to teach sa Vietnam niya. Kining gikuan ni Kaplan et al. Is mo ni siya ang main problem niya. Kato sila mga teachers is mo ni ang reason nila dili sila qualified sa being a teacher sa Vietnam.
Methodology.
So,
The method used in this research is descriptive qualitative case study to gain insight into the implementation of the primary English language policy in the rural and remote areas in Vietnam. So more specifically, this study employed a desk review of existing literature and research in Vietnam on primary English language policy implementation. So our study was conducted in the Northwest, one multi-ethnic region with the highest percentage of minority ethnics coming from 32 groups of 6 mountainous provinces. So as the study reported qualitative data of a larger project which used document analysis, survey, and semi-structured interviews, a careful consideration was made to ensure that the selected PEs had participated in the previous survey. So we ensured the inclusion of representatives with a variety of teaching experience, with novice teachers categorized as having fewer than 5 years teaching, and experienced teachers as having 5 years of teaching or more. So we also ensured the participants were from 6 provinces in the Vietnam. So our paper focuses on data collected from document analysis and semi-structured interviews. Themes, keywords, and time were the criteria for the selection of policy documents. About 20 documents were collected to address language and policy implementation issues regarding access, personnel, curriculum, method, materials, time, and resources. So we use cross-checking to ensure the accuracy of the content of the interviews. So once the raw qualitative data was collected from the interviews, they were translated into English. So the findings of the study were compared with previous literatures on how English language policy goals were implemented in Vietnam rural and remote areas. For anonymity, all identifiable names of people, institutions, or places were deleted, and the participants' names were replaced with pseudonyms. That's all.
So, the findings and discussion. The study indicates that rural areas lack the necessary conditions for a successful primary English implementation. As a consequence, primary students receive English instruction of varying curriculum, quantity and quality, with a focus on primary English teaching and learning in a new primary English curriculum. Was issued in 2010 decision 3321 GDDT or GDPHDT August 12, 2010, highlighting the need for teaching primary English. So the curriculum also listed the objective principal methods of teaching and assessment and other requirements for policy implementation. The focus of this curriculum was to establish the link between English curricula of different levels and mandatory teaching of 4 period of English per week.
Conclusion: policymakers should address inconsistencies when translating language policies into classroom context, pay extra for pets who work extra, adjust salary and allowances, reconsider requirements for pets working in rural and remote areas, reduce workload, assess pets in their personal development activities, and equip pets with knowledge and skills to cope with learning challenges. So while ago, Ms. Untua said that mga primary English teacher dito sa Vietnam is kanang mga inappropriate dito, tapos kanang dili sila qualified. So ang mga policy makers should make sure that the language policies are implemented consistently in classroom settings. They should provide additional compensation for primary English teachers who work beyond the regular hours. They should also review and adjust the salary and allowances of these teachers. Moreover, they should reconsider the requirements for primary English teachers working in rural and remote areas. To reduce stress and burnout, they should reduce the workload of these teachers. So policymakers should also support the professional development of this teacher by assisting them in the training and development activities. Lastly, they should equip these teachers with the necessary knowledge and skills to handle different learning challenges in the classroom. English foreign language teacher education and training institutions should include unique streams for primary English teachers and integrate knowledge about students from ethnic minority groups into training programs. So, institutions that provide education and training for English foreign language teachers should create separate program for primary English teachers. This program should tailored to the specific needs and challenges, such as teaching English as foreign language to young learners. Additionally, institutions should integrate knowledge about students from ethnic minority groups into their training program. So, this will help the primary English teachers understand the unique cultural and linguistic backgrounds of their students and how this factor may impact their language learning. By incorporating this knowledge, institutions can better equip primary English teachers with the skills and the strategies needed to effectively teach diverse groups of students in the classroom.
Question number 1. What makes learning English difficult for these Vietnamese students?
Learning English is a problem as Vietnamese is a tonal language. Vietnamese is a tonal language and students battle to speak English with a correct intonation and rhythms. This is why when Vietnamese students speak English, it can often be unintelligible to native English speakers.
What is the main focus of Vietnam's language policy?
So, the Vietnam Constitution of 1946 and 1992 stated that all minority groups have the right to maintain their mother tongue in their schooling as well as to use their language to preserve their ethnic cultures and values.
Question. What is the importance of English in Vietnam nowadays? So in Vietnam, English is a compulsory subject at school and it is also an official language commonly used to communicate with foreigners. Having good English can benefit employees at work, especially at foreign companies, and accelerates the country in social and economic development.
Do you have any questions?
None so far.
That's all. Thank you.